We're live. Yay! So, welcome to another episode of CEO Snacks. We're interviewing a friend, Greta Bajrami. She owns Golden Group Roofing, and I can't wait for her to get on. She should be coming on shortly. I really hope everybody's having a good Friday. It took me quite a while to get all glammed up with everything that's been going on. Hi, Nikki. Thanks for joining. Thanks for supporting. I really appreciate it. You know, in reaching out to Greta to interview her for CEO Snacks, I realized just how I'm surrounded by so many badass women that own their businesses, are entrepreneurs, or seeking to become entrepreneurs, content creators. I mean, just pretty amazing. So Greta, I'm so grateful that you signed on and allowed me to interview you today for CEO Snacks.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to introduce you to everyone. So Greta Bajrami, she is CEO of Golden Group Roofing. I think you are one of the youngest CEOs that I have interviewed in my series, which is
yay.
awesome. And and then you're a CEO in a male-dominated industry. So I want you to take us through how you got into the roofing business, how it's been for you as a woman, and then we'll move on to other questions that I have for you.
Yeah, of course. So hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. How I got into the roofing industry is by surprise. I was just like everybody else, a young college student that just wanted to not live paycheck to paycheck and wanted to get out of the poverty line. And in my college years, I waitressed on the side, but I was always innovative and always thinking of entrepreneurship being my calling. In my senior year in college, I took a class in entrepreneurship and I built this whole business plan for a coffee shop that I was going to call Tiramisu Cafe. And on that summer, I couldn't find a job, so I answered an ad for a roofing company that was hiring foremen, and I showed up and I got hired. And long story short, instead of opening a roofing a coffee shop, I ended up taking a summer job as a foreman in roofing. And I didn't know much about it, but I knew it paid well, and it allowed me to see a whole different world that I knew nothing about. And I applied skill, and I'm a big believer that sometimes in life you have to apply skill to get to passion. And I knew how to manage. I was young, I was energetic, and I was a go-getter. And these were all skills that I applied to get to my passion, which ultimately ended up being the world of roofing and this ability to operate a roofing company and succeed in a male-dominated industry. And it wasn't until 2 years that I spent in roofing that I really decided that this was something that I wanted to do for me. And this was something that I wanted to embark on full time. So I decided to take that thesis paper that I worked on my senior year in college called Tiramisu Cafe, and I decided to turn that business plan into a roofing company, because ultimately all businesses do have the same fundamentals. And that's how Golden Group Roofing was born. And it was born in March 11th, 2012, out of my house that I was renting out of my mom. And to backtrack a little bit, I'm also a young mom. So here I am in college with a young daughter, taking a business plan and trying to start a roofing business when nobody in my family is even in construction.
Right, because your mom is a doctor, right?
Yes.
How did your mom feel about you going into the roofing business?
To go back to those first moments, it was very scary because I grew up in a culture where college education is very valued and corporate structures are very valued. I grew up in an environment where, you have to be a businessman, businesswoman, lawyer, doctor. That's what your family told you have to become. So when I told people that I was going to become a roofer, there was a stigma, and there is still a stigma around that. There's still a stigma around the word I'm a roofer, especially to a young woman like myself, because people expect me to be in an office in a corporate building. People don't expect me to be in a job site on a roof. So it was a lot to overcome.
Speaking about stigma, what I've noticed about you and your business is that you do a great job about changing that stigma and you use social media to do that. So I want you to talk to me about that, about your whole social media strategy
Yeah.
on changing that stigma, but also informing people. And how has that worked in terms of increasing your business, scaling, and growing?
At first, I was very afraid. I was very afraid to let people know that I was the woman behind the brand, because it was a very scary thought, just the word woman behind the roofing brand. It was a very scary thought to let people know that I was, at the time, 25 years old or even 22 years old, and so I used to be very afraid of it. But the more confident I got, the more I realized that I had to show people who I was, and they either got it or they didn't. They either did business with us or they didn't. And the more successful the company started to become, essentially I was holding it back. I was holding it back because I was afraid that if people saw a girl, or people saw a woman sales representative, or if people saw a woman in the job site, they would automatically assume that it was a lesser quality. And that's how I saw my brand for a very long time. And it was actually in the last 2 years that I decided to run with me in the front and my team as well beside me, and show my face and show that I am 30 years old. But I'm really good at what I do. And although somebody may have 20 years of experience on me, that doesn't mean that I don't have the same amount of knowledge, because I've spent the same amount of time, right? Like, I've made up time by staying up late at night, by reading books and absorbing them and meeting people. And that was tremendous. That was a tremendous effect on the business. The more transparency and the more personalized the brand became, the more successful the company became.
And I noticed that too. Your line of business is not the type of business that most uh, owners of construction and roofing companies take the time to actually brand and have like a marketing strategy, a brand strategy. What made you take that step, and what has been the most effective for you?
Yeah, I took that step when I started to realize that if we wanted to become successful, we had to realize that this was a business like any other business. It needed logo, it needed design, it needed photography, it needed videography, it needed social media marketing, it needed everything and more. And it was tough thing to really swallow in construction, because a lot of people that were old school were telling me that no, you don't do that in construction, because if you seem very polished, people are going to think you're expensive. And if you seem too expensive, people are not going to want to do business with you. So I was at a crossroad. Do I make my company have all these things that essentially what Gen Z and millennials and all the generations that are becoming homeowners want? Or do I stay outdated and old and appear to be cheap and not that expensive? So that was something that was tough to overcome. And that's something that I decided essentially that was the right calling for me. And it was to invest in my business, to really take it up notch and make it similar to other entities, something similar that you might see in a beauty salon or a corporate company. There was no difference.
I love it because and then you also like educate, right? You educate people that may not even be homeowners, educate people that are homeowners. Like, you do a really great job of letting people know that getting a new roof is achievable, right? Whether it's not in your line of sight, it will be at some point. And I love that because you're a forward thinker. You're like, you may not be thinking of a roof right now, but eventually you will be. And I want to make sure you always make sure that you want to be top of mind. And I noticed that about you and your business. And I appreciate that as a digital marketer, because every time I see a video, I'm like, oh, that's pretty dope.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that that's a strategic approach. That's what we're called that harvesting for, we're harvesting for future years, where we have a strategic planning. We have a strategic marketing planning in place for immediate response, as that we call those like our hot leads. We have that plan, but we also have a future plan. We have a plan that's going into effect in 2021, but we don't expect this plan to really bring business until maybe 2023, 2024. This is very strategic, and I encourage a lot of business owners to think of innovative ways, and they don't have to be expensive, right? Like speaking in podcasts such as this is something that, again, might not have immediate response in your business today, but as this continues to be in the web and continues to circulate, it might, attract a certain specific customers of yours down the road. And similar with content building. I mean, a lot of the content we build is giving out knowledge and information, because the key is to give you enough education so you become the expert to make the right decision for your home. And we hope that we are part of that decision, because we were the ones that educated you.
Yeah, that's what I appreciate you as a business owner, because you do understand that marketing, you could have an immediate effect, but there's planning and strategy that goes into it. And like you said, there's that harvesting period that may not bring that immediate customer, but it's getting your potential customers ready and prepared to come to you at a certain point, right?
Absolutely.
Um, do you do digital ads? Like, how does that work for a roofing company?
We rely heavily on digital ads, but we rely mainly on Google ads. I mean, we have a very aggressive campaign, and it's because we are a business that you don't necessarily need probably ever in your lifetime, or maybe once in your lifetime, or maybe two if you're not that lucky. So if the average homeowner only needs 1 to 2 roofs in their lifetime, we have to be very aggressive and very strategic with our Google and with our ad campaign. And we go about it by keeping it very fresh. I think the best thing about that is keeping it fresh. I think even a weekly, bi-weekly review is a must, and it's a must in switching words, in switching copy, in switching photography. I think that's one of the biggest tips. I think a lot of people focus on the keywords, and that's really important, but once you get the keyword down, it's the copy, it's the language, is understanding that every single month there's different emotions happening in people's lives, and different things going on. So you got to be responsive to that. And the more responsive you can be and work with a team that doesn't charge you extra, or maybe you have a really good team that gets you and can do a lot of that work, on their own, that's going to be the key to digital ads, is just fresh and monitoring them and seeing what works and what doesn't, because sometimes things that I think are never going to work end up working the best, and then we run with it.
Right, because I think oftentimes, like, it happens to every business owner, like, we think we know our customer, and then our customer changes up what they like, right? And so a lot of
Absolutely.
things, it's like slime, throwing it on the wall and seeing if it sticks or not. What has been one of, like, a major challenge for you in the industry?
A major challenge, I would say, for me has been changing the mindset of the consumer and the way they perceive our industry. Because sometimes when we try to be too transparent and give up too much information, it almost seems to be like a negative effect on us. And I think that's been something that I, along with many other roofers in the industry that I look up to and are my mentors, is we're trying to switch the mindset of the consumer. Because although roofers, we're getting there, like roofers, we are getting there. We are using technology, we are using apps, we're using it, but now we need the homeowner to get there with us as well. So that's been the biggest struggle, is getting the mindset of the homeowner to shift so they appreciate and they value and they respect this union sort of that's happening naturally with the thanks of social media. Roofers more than ever, and other contractors, and actually maybe even other industries, for the first time are uniting and are becoming one, and we're sort of pushing the same message. And now it's our job to make sure that the consumer is receptive to that. So that's been a little bit of a struggle, more so for the trades than anyone, because our consumer is not used to this much,
Right.
touch and feel and digitalness happening.
Right. But as we know, like, during this whole pandemic, do you think you've gotten more consumers coming to you or assessing you through your social media platforms than
Yeah,
before?
I think that's the silver lining of COVID-19 for the trades, is been that for the first time ever, people want us to use drones, that people want us to get on a Zoom call, and people want us to meet virtually. Before, we had to push for that, right? We had to push, like, hey, let me give you a rendering, because you still have old school people who want you to measure with a paper and pen and a measure tape. So this has been the silver lining of that, is that people are being more receptive to the digitalness, and they're realizing that they can still have a beautiful experience virtually. And that's something that I think COVID pushed more so than ever. And roofers also got to realize that they could do a lot still remote, right? For the first time, we got to understand that we can do a lot with our clients without actually having to go inside their kitchen
Did
table,
you see
sit there.
did you see your business increase during the pandemic?
We did see waves of increasement, but overall 2020 did pan out similar to 2019. I don't think the numbers went that dramatic to say that there was an increase. There was definitely an increase of business in certain months, and I think that was just because more people were home in certain months and more people. But if you look at the whole year in review, the numbers are very much consistent with that of 2019.
Interesting. So interesting. So here's my final question, because as you know, we're CEO Snacks, so we give high impact digestible info. What is your CEO snack that you can share with other CEOs that has helped you build the business to where it's at now?
Well, I mean, I always go back to something that's personal to me, and that's creating something that's authentic and it has the layers of your character, right? Like, I think all too often when we build businesses and we try to create ad copy or marketing plans for our business, we view this business as an entity, and we should view it that way when we're talking about accounting and financials. But when we're talking about branding and marketing, we should view it as you. Like, what do you care for, and what is your mission? Stop putting up all these barriers, because the new generation of consumer, they want something real, raw, and they don't want these walls that they have to get through to get to know you. So the more real and unfiltered you can be for your audience, the more successful your brand's going to be. And that's a trend that we're seeing across the board is stop putting up all these we the people, I call it, talk, and be real. Be real and be authentic and be yourself and strip yourself bare. And it works in marketing, it works in branding. I'm not saying that you should do this when it comes to your financials and running your company, but when it comes to branding your company, brand it as if it was you, like if somebody was getting to know you, and have that be your messaging, because the more sincere it can be and the more realistic it can be, the more successful your brand will become. And that's something that's worked for Golden Group, and I think that's something that can work for really any company. And then if I could piggyback on that, I would say the most important thing is your people and how much you invest in them and how much of that message they're able to push out for you. I think sometimes as CEOs or as managers, we get so lost in us doing a great job that we forget that everybody has to do a great job. And sometimes that starts with a phone call, right? Like, to us, in my company, the person who answers the phone is, I think, the most important person of this whole piece of the puzzle, because they're the first introduction to everything that we do.
Yep, I totally agree. Going back to the CEO snack, it's funny you mentioned that, because this week I was listening to I am a big podcast listener, and I was listening to a few of them, and the common theme was about being in alignment with your brand. That when your brand is not pushing forward, when you don't see revenue coming in, or clients looking for you, or your follower count increasing on social media, or your engagement increasing, it's usually because you're not aligned with your brand. At some point, like you said, you detached yourself and who you are from the actual brand. And from what we've seen during the pandemic and your age group, is that they want to see who you are because they're buying into you.
Absolutely.
They're buying.
And that's why even 2 years ago we stopped writing in third person. We write pretty much everything in first person now. It's just, we want people to know that we are the people behind the voice. There's not some fancy person that's answering your email. It's me, or it's somebody like me, but essentially it's a person. And I think that if you're doing that for your business today, you're in the right place, and you're probably gonna overcome a lot of tough times that we're obviously all facing. But if you continue to refresh and continue to push forward with authenticity, I think those are the two secrets to keep pressing and refresh. I always tell people you wouldn't wear the same shirt every day, so why would you leave your website looking the same for a whole year?
I totally agree. I just worked on my website myself this week. It's so funny you mentioned that. Well, thank you so much, Greta. I think your CEO snack it's so funny, because every time I do this, the CEO snack that presents itself is one that I was thinking about or heard on a podcast or read about during the week. So I'm not sure if it's the universe aligning itself that week for all of us.
Maybe. It could be. It definitely could be.
It could be. Thank you, Greta. I think
Thank
that
you.
CEO Snack is so perfect. Stay in alignment and be authentic with your brand.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for joining. Please make sure that you like, comment, share this IGTV, and make sure that you follow Golden Group Roofing. If you're in the Massachusetts area, you may need a roof. And if you're not in the Massachusetts area, Greta gives absolutely amazing advice that I honestly have not seen from any other roofing company. So if you want to at least educate yourself, follow Golden Group Roofing if you're not in the Massachusetts area. Thanks again, Greta, and we'll talk soon.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great one.